the one that changed the world. I'm going to tell you something that will genuinely surprise you. Once upon a time, they told people it was their patriotic duty. They said, "You're helping your country win." They said, "There's no risk." But they hid one crucial truth. They were never planning to give that money back in full. War bonds weren't just a financial instrument. They were one of the most brilliant psychological tricks in history. A system that turned ordinary people into both citizens and lenders. They converted loyalty into money and patriotism into debt. Welcome to Financial Historian. Here, we talk about money, power, and history, and we expose the things hidden beneath the surface. This is the story of how governments realized they could sell war as an investment opportunity, and how millions of well-meaning people unknowingly funded the world's first global financial game. 1914. Europe is burning. Great empires, Britain, France, Germany, face a simple truth. Their treasuries are empty. Modern war was nothing like the old ones. It wasn't about swords or horses anymore. It was steel, gasoline, bullets, and logistics. Death itself had become industrial. Every bullet had a price. Every tank was a debt. Gold reserves were draining fast. And leaders realized they couldn't fund this war with soldiers alone. They had to involve the citizens. But how? Raising taxes would spark unrest? So people had to hand over their money willingly. And that's when a clever yet sinister idea emerged. Turn debt into patriotism. Britain called it the war loan. Posters appeared everywhere. Women in black mourning their sons, calling the public to help finish the fight. Soldiers' faces beside the slogan, "If you cannot fight, finance." Germany introduced the Kriegsanleihen war bonds. Crowds lined up at banks, convinced they were investing in victory. And when the United States entered the war in 1917, things turned into a full-blown show. The government didn't just sell bonds. It sold emotion. Buy Liberty bonds. Uncle Sam pointing straight at you. Movie stars, athletes, priests. Suddenly, everyone became a salesperson for the treasury. Cities held parades, and children were told, "Every penny helps bring your father home." The message was simple. If you love your country, contribute. But the reality was completely different. These bonds were just promises. Paper that said, "We'll pay you back after the war." Yes, they offered interest. But there was one detail they didn't emphasize. Repayment would be in money, not in purchasing power. And after the war, inflation exploded. Between 1917 and 1920, prices nearly doubled. Someone who invested $100 got $100 back, but those dollars were worth only half. Britain faced the same disaster. The 1917 war loan paid 5% interest, but inflation in the 1920 seconds wiped out more than 60% of its value. And Germany? The government said, "Don't worry," then printed money endlessly. A few years later, hyperinflation wiped out every saving people had. The citizen who helped the country in 1916 became a beggar by 1923. People didn't lose because the war was lost. They lost because inflation won. The truth is this: war bonds were never designed to enrich the public. They were created to refill empty treasuries. When you bought a bond, you weren't buying victory. You were buying time. And governments knew this perfectly, because this wasn't just finance. It was propaganda. They equated money with morality. Questioning a bond was almost like not loving your country. Posters showed heroes, not interest rates. Buying a bond became less of a financial choice and more of a declaration of faith. And faith is the most valuable resource a government can extract. The war ends, the debt remains. After the war, governments were drowning in debt. They knew they couldn't pay it all back. So they changed the meaning of the word repayment. Britain converted short-term debt into long-term perpetual bonds, called consols. These bonds would theoretically pay interest forever, yet never mature. Citizens collected tiny interest coupons for decades, while the real value of their money evaporated. Britain finally closed these debts in 2015, almost 100 years later. The U.S. story was similar. Liberty bonds melted into America's massive government debt structure, becoming the foundation of today's U.S. national debt system. The war ended. The debt did not. And the world discovered a new superpower, the ability to borrow forever by devaluing money. World War II. When World War II began, the playbook was ready. This time, Hollywood joined the campaign. Rita Hayworth, Clark Gable, Walt Disney, even Bugs Bunny, all selling war bonds. Patriotic finance had become a tradition. Once again, people invested in victory, and once again, inflation erased their savings afterward. But nobody cared anymore. It had become a reflex. Debt was no longer shameful. It was a patriotic service. And governments had learned a powerful truth. The most reliable creditor in history is not a bank, but a citizen who feels they are part of a mission. After 1945, the empire of credit. A new empire rose not through conquest, but through credit. America. The dollar replaced gold. U.S. Treasury bonds became the safest asset on earth. The whole world started buying American debt as if it were wealth. What was once propaganda became the foundation of global finance. Today, mortgages, investment funds, and retirement accounts all rely on the same idea: trust in debt. And every new crisis brings the same message. During the Cold War, buy savings bonds. After 9/11, buy treasury bonds. During the pandemic, spend now, worry about debt later. Different crises, same strategy. Everything starts with emotion, security, fear, hope, and ends in a spreadsheet. The real success of war bonds. Their biggest achievement wasn't raising money. It was merging saving with obedience. When you bought a bond, you didn't just fund a war. You funded the entire system. And belief in these bonds became so strong that people stopped caring about actual repayment. Governments realized something profound. If people believe, money doesn't matter. Today, new names, same game. Now the names are different. Green bonds, rescue bonds, defense securities, but the plan hasn't changed. Every crisis is financed with public money. And every crisis tells citizens, this shows your trust in your country. No more posters with soldiers. Now it's economists on TV. No more waving flags. Now it's slogans like sustainability and stability. But the message is the same. Lend us your future so we can fix today. War never ended. It simply changed form. Now we fight poverty, climate change, terrorism, recession. But the financing is always the same. Your money, your belief, the final truth. War bonds were never created to finance war. They were created to finance trust. Before 1914, people trusted gold, savings, and real assets. After 1918, they trusted the state. War didn't just reshape borders. It reshaped how people think. And since that day, every crisis triggers the same response. When fear rises, governments never say, save yourself. They say, save the system. And we do it because we believe our safety and the system's survival are the same thing. That is the real legacy of war bonds. A debt written not in ledgers, but in minds, a return of money illusion. War bonds worked almost too well. They taught the world a model: endless borrowing, justified by endless crises. From the trenches of 1917 to the screens of 2025, one thing has never changed. If people believe money is infinite, but belief has a cost, inflation, inequality, recession, because once a government learns it can borrow from tomorrow, it stops being careful with today. And that is the story of the first global financial deception in history. The posters once said, "If you can't fight, finance." A century later, it's no longer a slogan. It's a system. The world still runs on war bonds. We've only changed the name.